She expected the human to kill her, but he did something completely different. The rain hammered down on the ruined battlefield, washing the blood into the mud. Ashira knelt on her knees, chest heaving, her four-armed body trembling with exhaustion. The war was over, or at least her part in it was. Her squad lay dead around her. Her weapons had shattered. Her armor was cracked and useless. She was the last survivor of her unit, and now she faced a single figure standing across from her. A human. His visor retracted, revealing dark eyes, weary but steady. A streak of mud marked his cheek, and his rifle was slung casually at his side. Ashira bared her fangs in defiance. Do it, human.
Kill me.
End it quickly. She expected the shot, the execution. That was the way of war. Captives were liabilities, especially enemy officers like her. Instead, he simply tilted his head, as though studying some strange animal.
No, he said.
The word struck harder than any bullet. Her ears flicked back in confusion. No. You're beaten. Not a threat anymore. He stepped closer, lowering his weapon to the ground. What good would killing you do now? Ashira's throat tightened. She had been raised to believe humans were ruthless, merciless. To surrender was to invite death. Yet this one stood before her with the opportunity and refused. You're mocking me, she hissed. He crouched before her, close enough she could smell the mix of steel, sweat, and smoke clinging to him. His gaze never wavered. I've had enough killing for one lifetime. Ashira blinked, unsure how to process his calmness. The silence pressed between them, filled only by rain and the distant rumble of artillery fading into the horizon. Finally, she spat into the mud. Then what?
Chain me?
Parade me as a trophy? You think I'll beg? He gave the faintest smile. No chains. No parades. You're coming with me. The trek back through the shattered valley was slow. Ashira stumbled often, but the human, whose name she learned was Daniel, never rushed her. He offered her his canteen, and though pride burned in her throat, thirst won. The water was shockingly cool, and she drank until her tusks ached. Daniel never gloated. He never insulted her kind. He simply walked, scanning the hills for threats, as though she were not his enemy, but something else. When they reached the human outpost, Ashira braced herself for cruelty. But instead of being dragged into a cage, she was taken to a medical tent. Human doctors cleaned her wounds. They didn't flinch at her alien anatomy. They simply worked. Confusion warred with suspicion. Later, when she sat wrapped in a blanket, Daniel appeared again, carrying a tray. He set it before her. Bread, protein ration, and a steaming bowl of broth. Ashira's claws curled.
Why?
Why feed me? Because you're alive, Daniel said. And alive things deserve a chance. She studied him, searching for deception. But his eyes were steady, and she sensed no malice. For the first time in her life, Ashira didn't know what role she was meant to play. Enemy? Prisoner? Survivor? Days turned into weeks. Ashira remained at the outpost, watched but not bound. Daniel visited often, sometimes with food, sometimes just to talk. At first, she resisted, answering his questions with snarls or silence. But his persistence wore at her walls. He asked not about war, but about her people, her childhood, the songs they sang under their twin moons. To her shock, she found herself answering. One evening, as the sun bled red over the horizon, Daniel sat across from her by a campfire. You know, he said, poking at the flames, when I first joined the army, I thought I'd be a hero. Thought we were the righteous ones. But after a while you stop seeing sides. You just see faces. People. Some scared, some angry, some just tired. Ashira lowered her gaze. And what do you see when you look at me? He didn't hesitate. Someone tired of fighting. The words pierced her armor more deeply than any blade. She expected him to look at her as a monster, a killer. Instead, he saw her exhaustion, her scars. Her. One night, distant bombardments shook the valley. Orders came. The outpost was to be abandoned. Daniel was assigned to the rear guard, tasked with ensuring all non-combatants were evacuated, including Ashira. As they prepared to leave, she caught his sleeve with one clawed hand. Why do this? You could have left me on the battlefield. You could have ended me. Every instinct tells me I should hate you. But you, her throat tightened. You confuse me, human. Daniel met her eyes. Maybe that's the point. Maybe someone has to break the cycle. Her heart pounded. She had grown up believing peace with humans was impossible. Yet here was one soldier, carrying her pack, offering her food, treating her as if her life had worth. For the first time, Ashira dared to imagine a different future. The retreat turned dangerous. Enemy forces swept in faster than expected. Gunfire cracked across the ravine, forcing the column to scatter. Daniel shoved Ashira toward cover. Stay down. She wanted to argue. She was a warrior, not some fragile creature to be protected, but before she could rise, a mortar shell struck nearby. The blast hurled Daniel to the ground, shrapnel tearing across his side. Ashira froze. Her instinct screamed, run, escape, leave the human to his fate. Yet something deeper overpowered them. With a growl, she sprinted into the firestorm, dragging Daniel into shelter. His blood soaked her hands, hot and human. Why? He gasped, clutching at his wound. You could have left me. Ashira's voice shook. Because you didn't leave me. They survived the night together, huddled in a collapsed bunker. Ashira pressed her hands against his wound, refusing to let him fade. For hours she whispered battle prayers in her tongue, prayers she never thought she'd utter for a human. By dawn, rescue arrived. Daniel was carried away on a stretcher, still breathing. Ashira walked beside him, her claws slick with his blood, her heart heavy with something she had no name for. Weeks later, in a recovery ward far from the front, Daniel opened his eyes to find Ashira sitting vigil at his bedside. She had refused transfer, refused separation. When he stirred, she leaned closer, her tusks catching the light. I thought humans were cruel, she whispered. I thought mercy was weakness. But you showed me something else. Daniel smiled weakly. Guess we both learned something. Silence stretched between them. This time, it was not heavy with suspicion, but with possibility. Ashira reached for his hand, her clawed fingers brushing his. It was awkward, strange, imperfect, but it was contact, connection. For the first time since the war began, she allowed herself to hope.